Let's go to William. William's next up on PTL. Hey, William, what's going on, man?
Hopefully you're doing better. And are we up to 120?
Let's see here. If you're William, good to hear. I believe we're at 114,000 plus subscribers right now. Yeah, so we're going strong. We're going strong.
Do the listeners need a little lecture from me so they increase that?
I never say no to a lecture if it means that I'm going to benefit from it, William. So how could I say no to that? Go right ahead, sir.
As I always say, if the listeners knew how hard you work, I think they'd open their pockets a little more and get their friends to subscribe. And now, since we are on different sides of the aisle, do you have anything you want to ask me?
Oh, well, geez. All right. Well, boy, you're opening up a can of worms there, William. All right, let me ask you this.
And remember, Brian, you're for sale before you ask.
Fair enough. So, William, Donald Trump is now surprised that Vladimir Putin might not want peace. He says, we've always had a great relationship, and I'm very angry with Putin. Vladimir Putin, as you know, is a guy that is an evil, murderous dictator, and he's been doing this for years. Why do you think all of a sudden now Donald Trump is starting to realize that maybe Vladimir Putin isn't such a good guy?
There is no justification for it, and you were a little mild on how bad a person Putin is.
Then what is wrong with Trump? Because I know you voted for him. What is it with Trump? Why is it that now he's all of a sudden he's the one who said he would end the war in 24 hours? Why is it now that he's saying, "Oh, you know what? I'm really angry with Putin, and you know what? Maybe now, we'll do something about it, and maybe sanctions." Why has he waited till now?
I have a feeling he has spread himself too thin with too many things too fast. And when you take shortcuts, then it doesn't always turn out well.
But like this was the guy that said he would find peace in the Middle East, and now it's chaos in Gaza. I don't know if you heard about this U.S.-backed aid distribution. The Israel-Palestinian conflict is worse as it was on day one. As you know, the war in the Ukraine is still on fire. He hasn't lowered the price of prescription drugs. He hasn't lowered inflation drastically at all. Everything seems to be moving in the wrong direction. And I'm wondering, what has he done? Because I hear a lot of people who voted for Trump that will say, well, look at what he's done when it comes to immigration. Look at all the people that's been deported. Well, yeah, he's not giving people due process, and there are great people, good people in this country that are in El Salvador prisons, women ripped from their kids. I mean, is this the America? I can't imagine, William, that this is the America that you want.
The only good things that are going on now is the borders should be closed for the safety of our kids with drugs, period. There's no negotiation on that. Do you agree?
I don't think our borders should be.
And the drugs, and maybe I've been watching To Catch a Smuggler too much.
Okay, so here's my. So, William, here's my comment on that. Most of the fentanyl that's coming into this country illegally are coming through ports of entry from U.S. citizens. Most of the drugs in this country are not from illegals. Now, I don't want any illegal drugs in this country. Let me be very clear on that. But the bottom line is more fentanyl is coming in this country from U.S. citizens than those that are not legal. That's my frustration there. And my other frustration when it comes to the border, again, is as follows. We had a bipartisan border bill in effect. And if the argument is, well, look, there's less people coming into this country illegally now. It's great. Everything's great. Well, tell that to the families of those who never got due process, who are not violent criminals, who are in El Salvador prisons. I just think that everyone has the right to due process, and we always hear MAGA Republicans talk about the Constitution. Donald Trump has literally ripped our Constitution in half. That has to bother you.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the ins and outs, how it really works.
Wait, but hold on, William, you're not a stupid, William, you're a smart guy. In our Constitution, it says any person. Doesn't say documented or undocumented, has the right to due process. Any person.
Correct.
If they wanted to say only if you're legal, they could have said that. They said any person. So I don't think you have to be a lawyer to understand that Donald Trump is defying our Supreme Court and he's defying our Constitution. I'm not an attorney either, William. We're both in the same boat, but I don't think you have to be one to understand that. That's just my opinion.
Right, and everything is not perfect just because the border is slowed down. Mm-hmm. It's far from it.
Do you regret your vote at all?
I never will, Brian. I'm sorry.
You never will?
I will never regret my vote because I believe that the other choice, I'm not sure she wouldn't need help to run the country, and I don't think she could have done it by herself.
All right. Well, okay, that's fine. We'll go back to Kamala in a little bit. So you said never. If Donald Trump was seen on a video sodomizing a child, would you feel different?
Brian, you and me treat women much better than Clinton and Trump.
Okay, but hold on. But I understand, of course. But let's leave Clinton out of it.
What you just said,
yeah,
I would never say a good word about him again.
Okay, what would you say, William? Do you have any kids?
No.
You have any kids?
Married once.
Okay, you were married once. Do you have kids though?
We tried. No.
Okay, understood. So let's just say your ex-wife, and I'm sorry to hear that, but let's just say your ex-wife was in a dressing room in a beauty pageant when she was like 16 or 17 years old. And Donald Trump ran the pageant, and he went in there watching your now ex-wife changing while she was naked without permission, and she was horrified by it. Would you still vote for that person?
I would not intentionally vote for him.
Okay. The only reason why I'm saying that, William, is because he did that.
Because a lot of people, Brian, have done things we'll never know about.
Okay, but a lot of people don't ever become president of the United States, and Donald Trump did admit to doing that on the Howard Stern show. So that's why I just want to know where your bar is. That's all. Because I agree.
My bar is, my mom told me she was molested 4 times. Any man that molests any age woman is a 0 to me.
So what about somebody who's found liable for sexual abuse?
I know where you're getting at, but without knowing all the true facts, you know what I mean?
We're not on the jury. Well, no, the jury saw that. The jury saw that.
Obviously, if Trump did something to a minor, you're exact.
But he did.
Ever liked
but Trump. Okay, so Trump. I want you to listen to this, William. Trump went on the Howard Stern show, and he bragged sexually about going into teenage beauty pageant locker rooms while they were changing without permission.
Right.
Forget about policy for a minute, William. I'm happy to have that conversation with you. Let's talk about character. Is that somebody that you want to be the leader of the free world?
I would answer that question is, I don't know if anybody has that character anymore, Brian, for one person to lead.
Has Kamala Harris ever gone into a locker room, in a boys' locker room, without permission, talking about them changing naked? Has Kamala Harris ever had anybody accuse her of sexual assault or rape, including an ex-husband? Donald Trump's ex-wife accused him of rape in court documents in a deposition. Has Kamala Harris ever been sued and paid off thousands of discrimination lawsuits? Has Kamala Harris ever bragged about sexual assault, grabbing women or men by the genitals because they're a celebrity and they let you do it? You get where I'm trying to go at here. You can
what you're saying is, I'll give you a little bit of a variation on me. After Kobe got in trouble with the young lady in Colorado, I never liked him again. But everybody knew about it blatantly.
Would you have voted for Kobe Bryant for president of the United States?
No.
Then why did you vote for Donald Trump? Because Kobe Bryant was liable and paid her off, but he was found not guilty of rape. Donald Trump was found liable in a court of law of sexual abuse. In fact, you could make the argument that Donald Trump has far worse of a resume, for lack thereof, when it comes to mistreatment of women than Kobe Bryant does. Then why did you vote for Trump? Help me understand that, William.
But, okay, and you know how we think a little bit differently, but basically on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
Why did anyone vote for Bill Clinton?
Okay, but that's what. Okay, but that's.
I'm being brutally honest.
I wouldn't, but that's whataboutism. I think Bill Clinton did a lot of bad things to women. I really do.
No. He lived his life the way he wanted to.
Well, you don't think Donald Trump is doing that?
He probably did. Because he was raised with everything.
Okay, so I agree with you.
And he was enabled, if you know what that.
So I think you're making my point for me, William, and I'm not trying to change your mind here.
Your point is correct.
But what was it about Kamala Harris that you dislike so much? I'm just trying to.
Sometimes people vote against the other candidate, and I think you'd agree with me, rather than for either one.
Okay, why though? What was it about Kamala Harris where you said I'd rather vote for a liable sexual abuser and a guy who goes into teenage locker rooms when they're naked What was it about Kamala that was so bad that you said, I'm going to vote for that guy?
She was painted with the border czar, and that.
But she was not. But Mayorkas was the border czar. Kamala was not the border czar.
Oh no! But you remember when Biden came out and said you're in charge of the border?
Well, but she wasn't in charge of the border. I don't care what Joe Biden said. Mayorkas was in charge of the border, and Kamala, as the vice president, you know this, William, is not a policymaker. J.D. Vance is no more of a policymaker than Kamala is. In fact, Kamala and Joe Biden came together to help put together the bipartisan bill. But even if that was true, which with respect, I don't think it was, but even if it was true, and let's just say she was the border czar, okay, you think she failed on the border, you're still voting for...
Oh, no, I'm not saying she failed. Is they painted her as responsible for it, and you know how...
Who painted her as that? But who did that?
When they said that she was the border czar,
who?
People in their minds thought she was in charge.
Well, I can't control what people think. Some people are ill-informed, but she wasn't the border czar. Mayorkas was the border czar. Now, if you want to say that the Biden administration and Mayorkas didn't do a good job of securing the border, I think that's a very fair conversation to have. But the bottom line is that Kamala Harris was not the border czar. Give me something else. Like, I want to pick your brain a little bit here. Give me something else, and you say, William, that's why I voted for him, and I couldn't vote for her.
Living in California my whole life, there was a certain man she became involved in very early in her career, and in a way, it was an exchange for advancement in politics.
Okay,
I'm just telling you what it was.
Okay, so 30 plus years ago, when Willie Brown was not with another woman, in fact, I believe he was single at the time, they may or may not have had a relationship. Where is the evidence to prove that he helped her career? A woman who went to college and got a quality education, passed the bar, became the attorney general twice, and then elected as a senator. Is there any evidence to prove that a guy by the name of Willie Brown helped get her to where she was and get to the vice presidency?
I'm not saying it was direct, but I think you know as well as me, I'm living in California my whole life, it's hard for a Democrat to lose a statewide office no matter who they are.
Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think is more valuable? Allegedly, her having a relationship with Willie Brown 30 years ago, or your father, or your father giving you a $500 million company when you're a child, basically, when you're a kid.
You're right. I do not hold it against her.
All right. So give me something you hold against her.
Plants a little seed of doubt.
Okay. Well, okay. Give me something that you would hold against her then, because you talked about the border. Mayorkas was the border czar. You talked about an alleged relationship from 30 years ago, which I don't think has any bearing on her career. But give me something.
But it potentially helped her career.
Okay, I would respectfully disagree with you on that. I don't think there's any evidence to prove that. Donald Trump has slept with so many women. He's disrespected and lied to pretty much every woman he's ever been with. But let's stay away from Trump for a moment here. Give me something that really you don't like about Kamala Harris that, and she's, forget about the border because we talked about that. Forget about Willie Brown. I want to dissect and really figure out what was it about her that you said, I can't vote for this woman.
You have me a little here because I don't know the specifics. And like I said before, is as a woman in politics, she was very successful.
Mm-hmm. And why is it? But why does it have to be a woman in politics? Why can't we just say politics in general? As someone,
no, she's done very well. Even you will agree with me for a woman.
Yeah, but okay,
it's not easy.
It makes it harder. I do agree with you on that. But she has had a very successful life, regardless of what's between her legs, which personally, I don't care. I get what you're saying. I get your point. But what
she could be the top 3 of all women in politics in the United States history.
Perhaps, but you didn't vote for her. And I'm trying to understand why. What was it about Donald Trump in his first administration where you thought he did a great job?
The interest rates were very low and he helped a lot of people lower their payments and let them stay in their houses.
Okay,
and that's from a financial.
All right. Well, I would just beg to differ on the fact that when he left office, we were locked up in our rooms and people were jobless. And I thought his handling.
Oh, no. I mean, people had a chance to refi to make it easier to keep their house, which is very valuable in this.
All right. Well, Kamala Harris had a lot of plans for housing, including a $25,000 down payment loan by the government for people that are struggling living paycheck to paycheck. But when it comes to Trump, he got us $8.2 trillion in debt. I always hear from Republicans about the deficit and conserving money. He got us $8.2 trillion in debt. Didn't that concern you?
Do you agree that Democrat or Republican they don't care?
I think that's a general term. I think there are some people that do care, and I don't think Donald Trump cares. Otherwise, he wouldn't have implemented all these tariffs, and he wouldn't be making his tech billionaire friends richer, and he wouldn't have given some of the biggest tax breaks to the top 1% in decades. So I would agree with you that some people don't care. I don't think Donald Trump cares about middle America. He's taking away food stamps.
Oh, no, I didn't say he cares. Yeah. But they kick the can down the road, if your listeners know what that means.
I think it's a general statement that, yes, I think some politicians definitely do that, sure. But do you think he really wanted to make America great again, giving some of the biggest tax breaks to the top 1% and telling women what to do with their bodies and, these transgender culture wars? I don't know. I don't think it's make America great again. That's just my opinion. But I'm just trying to figure out, like, one really important thing that you just can't stand about Kamala Harris. Listen, I don't think Democrats are perfect by any stretch. I have my grievances with them as well, but I look at Kamala Harris as a good family woman, a good mother, a good wife, an example for a young girl. And I look at Donald Trump as a despicable human being. I'm just from a moral standpoint.
Right, and he could be despicable.
Could be?
Right? He could be. I'm not saying he isn't.
So you don't, okay.
I have no direct facts, Brian. I kind of.
All right. How many marriages has Donald Trump had?
I have no idea. Maybe two.
He's had several. Has he ever been faithful? Like, what would you say about a guy who has unprotected sex with a porn star while his wife is pregnant?
That's pretty stupid.
I agree. What would you say about a guy who makes Bibles in China for $3 and sells them in the United States for $60 after he becomes president?
It would be selfish.
I agree. What would you say about a guy who has nicknames and attacks anybody who disagrees with him?
That could be a character trait.
I agree. Right? I agree. What would you say about a guy who...
I'm stubborn. I don't know how you are, but I'm stubborn where it actually hurts me sometimes.
Yeah, I understand. What would you say about a guy who's had 25-plus women that have accused him of sexual abuse or rape, and including his ex-wife in court documents?
The truth on that one is, I will bet my life it's not all 25 are telling the truth.
Okay, but if it was just one, would that be okay?
Do you agree that all 25 probably aren't telling the truth?
I don't know, but what would you say? What would you say if it was only one?
If it was one, my grandfather said always forgive a woman once, but I guess that doesn't matter anymore.
Well, because you talked about an alleged relationship that Kamala Harris had with Willie Brown 30 years ago.
Oh, no. I'm just saying that if and only if that was done to promote her career in politics, I don't like that.
Yeah, there's no evidence though that's true. All I'm simply saying is that what do you
see where I'm coming from?
Even if that was true, let's just say allegedly that Kamala Harris slept with Willie Brown to help her career. Do you think that would be worse than Donald Trump raping a woman?
I would never hold it against a woman doing anything in politics, would you?
Okay, but hold on. What do you think is worse? If, in fact...
Trump is 1,000 times worse if we know the whole story on both situations.
Do you know the whole story on Kamala Harris and Willie Brown?
I never will.
Okay, so why don't you question Donald Trump and all the sexual allegations then? Why is it...
I don't question it. Some of it has to be true, but not all of it.
Okay, I hear you, William, but hear me out on this. When we talk about Donald Trump and his sexual abuse, you had said, I don't think all of it's true. I don't think they're all telling the truth. Why not give Kamala Harris the same benefit of the doubt?
25 out of 25.
Okay, fine, but I think one is too many.
Do you?
I think one is too many.
Do you believe all 25 out of 25?
I don't know. I tend to believe victims when they come forward and they claim. I start by, and I also think context and the person is very important. Example. You've had over 25 women that have claimed Trump has raped or sexually assaulted them. It was proven in a court that he was found liable for sexual abuse of E. Jean Carroll. This is a man who's never been faithful to one woman his entire life. He literally bragged about grabbing women by the genitals. He literally went into teenage locker rooms without their permission. So I think context is very important. So if you're going to ask me, right, do I believe the women? The answer is yes. Based on the way he's lived his life and the way he's talked about women and the way he's treated women his entire life, absolutely, 100%, yes.
You're correct, as I just don't think mathematically 25 out of 25 is possible.
Even if it was 1 out of 25, I would never vote for somebody that rapes women. I wouldn't vote for a rapist. I wouldn't vote for someone who abuses women. I don't care if Kamala Harris had a relationship with a man 30 years ago that might have been powerful. I could care less. What I care about is her character now, and that's why I voted for her. Yeah.
Okay. Let's assume you're 100% correct. How would you judge Bill Clinton, the same or different?
Okay, so the reason why we're talking about Kamala Harris is because it was Harris versus Trump. As I've said on this radio show before, I think Bill Clinton did some very bad things to women, and I don't think he's a good guy. I've said that about Bill Clinton. I wouldn't vote for Bill Clinton right now if he ran for president. I would probably vote for him over Donald Trump, but I wouldn't vote for him, and I wouldn't want to vote for him. I don't want to vote for bad people, even though you could make the argument fiscally he did a very good job as president, policy-wise, and he left us with a surplus. But the reason...
Oh, no, Bill was a great president. He was.
Okay. Well...
You agree?
I thought fiscally, yeah, he was a pretty good president. He was willing to work with the other side, and he did. The only point I'm trying to make is this, and I would say it is proven beyond the shadow of a doubt that Donald Trump is just a horrific human being, and he's treated women terrible his entire life. I don't care whether Kamala Harris slept with some dude 30 years ago. What I do know is just because you sleep with a guy by the name of Willie Brown, allegedly, that doesn't automatically guarantee you that the people are going to vote for you for attorney general twice. It doesn't mean that people are going to vote for you to be the senator, and it certainly doesn't prove that somebody's going to choose you to be the vice president of the United States. So I think she's a very intelligent woman, and she's very distinguished and a good lady.
Right. Let's assume that you're 100% correct. In California, whoever gets nominated as a Democrat in a statewide office has an incredible win percentage no matter who they are. Do you agree with that?
It depends. I think it's a case-by-case basis, right? I think
in general. If there's a D on the ballot, they win.
Yeah, I mean, in California, sure, for the most part.
Correct. So, but I don't want to take up any more time.
All right,
but
William.
I have to reinforce to your listeners that if they have no clue how hard you work,
thank you.
And the more they can help you and get new subscribers,
thank you, William.
It makes a big difference to the show and the quality that you can go beyond.
Well, thank you, William. That's very kind of you to say, and I appreciate your support as always, my friend. And even though we obviously disagree politically, I do think it's a good conversation.